and
Okay, what I was with.
what unit, and then Dave will keep track of the time and let us know when we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay, I'll talk fast.
And you can just tell whatever stories you want to.
We're going here.
Okay. I'm Vicky Johnson. I'm at the 10th Mountain Division reunion in Denver, Colorado. It's August 5th, 2007, and I'm interviewing
Orville Tomky, Olney Springs, Colorado.
and your unit.
I was with the 126 Engineers B Company. I was in the 1st Platoon, and the day we broke out of the mountains to go to the Po River, I was with the General Duff's task force. That morning, about dawn, they moved up some General Sherman tanks and armored cars, and my platoon, that was the 1st platoon of the company, they took 8 men and put them with the armored cars. They rode with the units of the armored cars, and my squad, we were in a GI truck behind the last tank as they shot through the German lines to head for the Po River. And along the way, we just twice that we had they had a minefield one time, and we got them through it. And there was one river, I don't know, small river, was all mined, all the explosives was in there, and we got down and cut all the wires and stayed with it. We rode in the truck for 4 hours, and then they would make us walk and take another squad of our engineers to replace us. We did that for, I guess, 30 hours before we hit the Po River, night and day. But anyway, we got strafed in the night a couple times with green and red tracers coming out of the sky. But that morning, it was, I don't know, about 8:30. All of a sudden, all the tanks stopped. And I looked up. I was half asleep in the back of the truck, and looked up, and here was this high bank of dirt. They have the Po River, them levees about 35 feet high on both sides. And I wondered what the heck was happening. Everybody was so sleepy. I and a couple other guys walked up, and here was that big river. I'm from Colorado, and I never saw water that big before. And anyway, went back by the truck and laid down, fell asleep, and all of a sudden somebody kicked everybody who was on the road and said, "Move off the road, move off the road. We got to have it, the plane's going to land here." And the tanks crews woke up and moved over, and we moved our truck off, and here come a Piper Club plane landed, and it was General Truscott from the 5th Army Headquarters. He was a two-star general. And here come General Hayes when that plane landed, and General Hayes saluted him. I was within hearing distance, and this Truscott said, "Hayes, what you trying to do, win this war by yourself?" And Hayes says, "I want to get it over as quick as I can." And he says, "Where are the boats to cross this river?" Well, and that Truscott said, "Oh, they're clear back to Bologna, 50 miles back." And Hayes says, "I've been up there with my field glasses, and we've killed and captured all the infantry. They didn't get across because there was no bridges for them. And I want to cross this river at 2 o'clock because my field glasses, I can see those pillboxes on the far side aren't manned. There's no activity over there." And this general says, "We'll do the best I can." But he got in his plane, he left. But if it hadn't been for that, General Hayes insisting that he says, "I want to cross this at 2 o'clock. About 1:30, here comes the trucks. We had enough of those wooden boats, 20 foot long, flat bottom, that hold 3 engineers and a squad of 12 infantry in each boat. We had enough for 800 men in the first wave, 3 infantry companies and 1 engineer company. And at 2 o'clock, well, we had all them boats lined up about as just walking distance between them. And at 2 o'clock, Lieutenant Colonel Parker, the engineers, waved like this, and everybody, the infantrymen, everybody, we grabbed the boat and carried it up on top of the dike, slid down in the water, and started paddling. And that's when all the Germans had a lot of anti-aircraft 88s along that river, you know, for shooting our airplanes and everything. And when the boats hit the river, they started shooting. There was air bursts, and there was bursts. If the burst would hit within 30, 35 foot of your boat, it would flip the boat and dump everybody in the river. And it was pretty chaotic for, about to get halfway across, and then our P-51s and P-47 fighter planes swooped in and silenced those guns, and the rest of the crossing wasn't too bad. But anyway, when it flipped your boat, mine didn't get flipped, but if you didn't swim enough to grab the side of your boat to stay afloat, or tread water or swim, and the boat behind, with the guys in there hand you a paddle to pull you in, you know, you drowned. And I went on the reunion in 1963, the first reunion we had over there, and General Hayes was there, and he was telling about it. He said there was 200 casualties on that crossing. I didn't know that, out of 800. And he said 100 was they figured from drowning, you know. People didn't know how to, soldiers. Well, if you, just like me and you here, we'd have our pistol belt on with ammunition, and you had grenades in your pocket. And if you didn't know how to swim real good and get rid of them, by golly, you just didn't make it. But I wanted to tell that story about that crossing. But here was how smart Hayes was. When the 87th companies hit the far side, they went over the dike and dug in right away. And here came 500 German soldiers from their reserves up from Verona. The fighter pilots had knocked their trucks out. They were coming down to man those machine gun nests. They had them nice pillboxes made out of cement and machine guns in there and everything. And if it hadn't have been for that, we'd have had bullets too. And not only that, I think about 40 minutes to an hour later, here come 1,500 more walking, and they captured all them too. But that was one break with a smart general that got us over. The Fifth Army didn't figure we'd even go across till the next day, you know. But I'll tell you another little story. Did you see that violin story up there? It took the heavy engineers. We were the division engineers. We did when the tanks needed mines or the bridge blew out, we'd fix a bridge or bypass, and we was always working. But anyway, it took 2 days to put that big pontoon bridge across. And the next night, it took B Company, the engineers. The Germans had a ferry, a cable ferry. They was trying to, all the bridges were blown off. The Air Corps had blown them off, taking vehicles and men across, and we captured that. There must have been 50 or 60 trucks that was lined up to get across, and they had a firefight there, and the German, as I was running the ferry, cut the cable and cut the pontoon, the pontoons, you know, that the trucks was on loose, and 3rd Platoon went down the river in the dark and found those I call them the pads for the, you know, you put the truck on and take it across. And they found them not too far down along the river, and they tied on to them and pulled them back at daylight. And the 1st Platoon, which I was in, we were supposed to go across for security because this was several miles. I think it was 2 miles from the original landing. And we were supposed to go across and secure where the other end of the cable came. And D Company was supposed to, they were the heavy engineers of our division, and they were supposed to put another cable ferry. But anyway, we was dreading it with no shooting or nothing. And we got our, there was 3 of us, 3 had 3 boats with the ones that went across. I was BAR gunner in the 1st boat, and we had a paddle, and just nice, and the sun was starting to get sunshine, you know, and boy, I could see that cement pillbox just coming in view, you know, and we was about, I don't know, 150 yards from it. And I thought, well, maybe I better fire my clip in my BAR in that opening. And about that time, a white flag came out. And as we landed, there was an infantry patrol was pushing down the side of the bank. We met at the same time, and here was a lone German soldier with his hands on his head, and we talked to him, and we said, how come you didn't, I asked him, how come you didn't open up on us? And he said, I knew the war was about over and I didn't want to get killed. He said, I was wounded on the Russian front, and they sent me to home, and I recuperated, and they sent me down here to guard that machine gun pillbox from the partisans, and that's what I was doing. And he was a happy man. Yeah. You don't have any more. I could talk all night.
We have more time.
Did you know that the field house that was at Camp Hale is in Colorado? It's on it's a ranch at Carbondale, and the lady, she must have been pretty wealthy. She bought it when they was tearing. See, it and the field house and some of the mule barns was the last things that was ever tore down there. We had Colorado, the mountain, Rocky Mountain chapter had a deal over at Aspen, and we went down there, and she bought it for $8,000, and they moved it in sections and put it together just exactly like it was, and she trains horses in it all year round, and I was flabbergasted how they moved that thing. That was really a big building, but it was the first laminated wooden arch building made by, I think, warehouse. Oh, let's see that. That forest company that made those, Weyerhaeuser or whatever it is. But anyway, it's there. People ought to know that. It'd been nice if this outfit could have gone over there. I used to go to that field house. Oh, they had a lot of quite a bit of entertainment there. And about, I don't know, every couple of weeks they would have a dance, a Saturday night dance. And they'd trucked in girls from Leadville, Minturn, any place they could get them. And that field house was so big, they'd have the band playing up on the stage. And you had to dance in a circle, keep from bumping into everybody. You get in the far side of the field house, you wouldn't hear the music all shuffling the feet on the floor. And I saw Joe Louis and different USO shows there. And it's a shame they ever took it out in a big field house. But if you ever want to see it, look up Carbondale. Ask somebody where that big field house is.
How did you get in the 10th Mountain Division?
When they lowered the age group from 20 to 18, the draft, I graduated from the high school in Brush, Colorado, and they took the first draft. They took us all to Fort Logan, and we took us to Denver, and we took our physical, and we gave us, I think, 2 weeks and then we all reported. And I was at Fort Logan. I don't know. They ask you a lot of questions, and there was myself and a boy from Nebraska. They gave us some papers and sent us to Camp Hale on a bus. And we got there, it was after dark one day. We were sitting there in the pando with the bus parked. Waited and waited and waited. And finally, some sergeant in a Jeep pulled up. And I had the papers, and I says, I'm supposed to report to somebody here and take care of us. And he took the paper and he says, get in the Jeep. I'll take care of you. And he took us 2 guys to medical detachment. And we had to help the sick. We was kind of like orderlies for about a week. And one day they grabbed me and they said, we're going to give this man a spinal. He was trying to buck for a discharge to see if he was insane, and get out. And I want you to hold him down while we did it. And I held him down. They took it. And that Dr. Rice, I said, after I got through, I said, I didn't come in this army to help the gold brickers. I want to be in a fighting outfit. And he says, what outfit would you like to be in? I said, how about the engineers? They had their barracks right below ours, and we'd hear them every morning fall out for reveille. And he says, I'll arrange this. See Captain Boyd at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I reported, and they were just forming, the last good bunch, and he said, sure, I need a farm boy. But I think that's why they sent me to Camp Hale, because I knew how to handle horses and mules. See, they made a skier out of me and a rock climber. And the sad part of it was, or a good part of it was, when we was overseas, we didn't have, the mules they sent to different places, and there wasn't enough mules, so they made all the engineers, we didn't have to handle a mule, and made us mostly take them out in mines in front of the tanks. When they blew every daggum arroyo or bridge, stream on the main road, and then we had to put either a Bailey bridge or a bypass to get the tanks up. And we worked. Tell you, our engineers, we worked. We fought as infantry twice, but the rest of the time we was always sport, keep everybody going. On Belvedere, for instance, that very morning at daylight, our engineer company at the base where as far as the trucks come, they had I'd call a ox cart road where the civilians took the wood off them trees. That's the only wood they had for firewood and cooking. And we widened that, I don't know, it's 3/4 of a mile or a mile to the top, with picks and shovels and crowbars. We, by about 3:30 or 4 o'clock that afternoon, we had it wide enough. They sent 6 of those 6x6 trucks and low gear up there with supplies. Before, the only thing that could get up there was a Jeep, and he'd have to dodge trees almost. But anyway, we sent them 6x6s up, and then they wanted 3 tanks, General Sherman tanks, and they sent them up. And the first one, the ground in the afternoon starts thawing out. In the morning, it's colder than hell. It's snow on the ground. But anyway, they sent them 3 tanks, and they were one behind the other. The first one, he'd sink down in the mud and the snow about this much. The next one would sink out that much. The third one, we'd have to, before the third one, on the bog spot, we'd have to throw rocks in so he wouldn't belly down. We got him clear to the top, right where it kind of flattened out on top. And the tank commander, he said, "We don't need you boys anymore. We'll go where we're supposed to assign." They wanted them for direct artillery support for the counterattacks, you know. And they were all driving in the same track. And that third tank broke the frost on what we called a stacked mines. Not one mine. One mine will blow the track off of a tank and stop it. But they stacked mines and put 3 or 4 in there. And that sucker hit that. It looked like it jumped up in the air about a foot and came down and burst into flame. Everything in flame. There was 2 guys pretty close, and they jumped up before the flames got bad and jerked the tank commander out. He was unconscious, and everybody else was cremated. But work, I'll tell you, we worked.
Sounds like it. Well, I'm afraid we've got to stop there.
Okay, well, thank you.
2 o'clock, so let me